Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellen. So yep, we're getting towards the Christmas season and here we go again with Ellen's Christmas cards. I go over this step by step and seriously this is easy. Any skill level can do this. People say they can't do this. You have to try it and you can do this. So this is going to be a lovely little Christmas card. Two kids sledding up a hill. Again, step by step using wet on wet techniques. All that kind of fun stuff, painting in the skies. We're using some gouache on this, so it's not all watercolor, but you need that gouache to get that snow. If you're a Patreon member, you get the bonus extra card. Yep, I go over how to do this. This is a fun little card as well. So if you're a Patreon member, you get this bonus on the Patreon. If you're not a Patreon member, consider joining. You can click the link in the description box below. I have extended videos, extra videos, weekly exclusive tutorials on Thursdays. You have a live stream on the top tier. Tons of stuff like between the Facebook page. You get first dibs on watercolor workshops and retreats. It's a really great bonus for if you really like my art and my channel. So just click on that and you can join and cancel anytime. And like I said, the link is in the description box. Click the word show more and you'll find it. So without further ado though, let's get back to the holiday spirit because it's coming around the corner and start painting Christmas cards. All right, so let me go over some supplies for this. I'm using Arch 100% cotton cold pressed paper. So basically I just like tear this up. It's like a 4x6, whatever, and you can place it on a piece of craft paper to make it look like a nice card. Just if you don't want to waste a whole ton of your paper folding in half, you can just cut out pieces and tape it on some craft paper, which would be great. I'll be using my Princeton 12 Neptune series, and then for the tinier details, 8 long round Velvet Touch and maybe the 4 round Velvet Touch series. I might use a tiny one today for the tiny, because this picture is a lot smaller than the original one that I played with, which is a lot bigger size, and you could do this bigger size as well, but for card purposes we're doing it small. So really you don't need a lot of sketching with this. Just picture like I'm making like a nice hill. I kind of just went like over to the right and up like here, and then I figured my tree would be kind of coming over here, right? So then we have the sky up in here. You can make it smaller down here if you want, larger, but just really kind of just put a curved line going upward this way, right? So that's your mountain, the area. Of course my other piece was bigger, so maybe I'm going to adjust this a little bit more, make this a little smaller, adjust it for the size that you're using. So let me go down a little bit smaller here and just curving it right here, just like so. So it's good to have all your colors mixed up before you even get started, because you're just going to be scrambling and it's going to be horrible. So I'm going to be using ultramarine blue and burnt sienna to make my sky and my shadows, and I mix a combination of the two. So you see, as you add more burnt sienna, it gets more brown, more ultramarine blue, it's more blue. I like it more on the blue range. That is my go-to. And then for the greens, I mix up Prussian blue with cadmium yellow deep. I don't ever do this, it's muddying your paint, but I did it anyway. And then a little burnt sienna or burnt umber just to tone it down. And the thickness of this paint would be more coffee, and for this paint more on like the cream, sometimes milk, but mostly cream. I'm not getting to butter. We're getting to butter towards the end. So I would say creamy. See how it's not moving as much? This is really, really loose. That's what we're going to do. So to get started, we have this area right here. We do this curvy area right there. And we're going to do a sky. And I'm going to do wet on dry. I taped this down with Scotch Magic tape on a piece of cardboard. I like Scotch Magic tape. It works for me. If you use whatever tape works for you, that's what I use. So smaller surface area, I hold it up like this. See how I'm holding on an angle? And I'm going to take my lovely, I just had some green on here. So again, I'm going to be holding it like this, kind of lifting it, and I'm going to just start to paint wet on dry. So I'm making this pretty loose, as you can see. The consistency is like almost like tea now. And I do the swooping kind of thing. Not like swoop, 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 swoop. It's a big swoop. It's a one-off. Okay, see, like a swoop. And I leave some white spaces. And I'm gonna dip my brush into the water and go down a little bit here, so it's a little lighter where the mountain kind of is. See, and I'll tap it back in my paper towel. So you see kind of like just lines right there. Now I'm gonna start to kind of mush them together a little bit and leaving some white there. So like white clouds kind of happening. I'll go back up and take some of the ultramarine blue again and my burnt sienna and make a little bit darker color. Thick paint, more in the creamy butter. See how dark that can get? I'm gonna add a little more blue, a little more water. You can make it really kind of a stormy sky or a bright blue sky. Somehow I'm losing my ultramarine blue here. It happens. Okay, trying to get more blue than less gray. Just kind of swoop. I'll add some water, just like that. If it's too dark, don't worry about it. It's gonna dry a little bit lighter. And I'm gonna go back in and just tap a little bit. Not gonna worry too much about this, right? Fill that in. So we get some little bit of white sky happening here. And then it's our little, now we're gonna start to paint this tree even though it's wet up here already. I don't like how, see how like there's no water here, so it's a little not as soft. If you wanna make that sky a little softer, you clean up your brush, have a little bit of water on it, and you just kind of touch next to where that area is and tap back on your paper towel so it's a little softer, right? It's not this harsh white you see. And you can kind of lifting technique. Don't do too much of this. It's gonna look overworked and you're gonna be mad, okay? All right, now what I'm gonna do is take my brush, my number 12, a little bit of clean water, and I'm kind of gonna put some water down here, like a little swooping kind of mechanism, and go up here. It's already gonna touch this area. So you see me swooping. I could have drawn that, but I'm not gonna draw it because I don't want a pencil line. So it's swoop. See, I swooped it. You can see this where I did that. And now we're gonna start to play with adding our tree in there. I've got my color mixed up, right? We can use this brush still, and we're gonna do this method where we just put this line down here, straight down, and we start to build out. Grabbing this, so it's very wet. See, do these little V's. And keep building out, depending how tall you want your tree. And keep grabbing some more with the water. And we can do the same thing over here. We can start to put the tree out over here too, like I line down. And now it's gonna be dry here, but wet here, and it's gonna really bleed out. Do the same little V's. And here you'll see you won't have that. But you don't need to worry about that. You're not having this bleed on top. See? Let's put this motion of this same big brush. I'm going to come down a little further with this one. You can see the wet area. I'm going to grab, actually, this is what I'm saying, make more paint. I'm having to make more paint. Now I can go pretty fast, but if you can't, you really need to have a lot of paint mixed up. So going down again and just kind of like making that V. See? The thicker the paint, less it's going to bleed. You can start to do little ones back here. See, just put a little line. If you don't want to use this big brush, use a smaller brush. But really, it's going to do this simple bleed for trees. You could put a line down. See that little line I just did? Tap. And you can just do little taps on the bottom. It's still very wet there, so it's going to be little fuzzy trees. If it dried, you can try and just make your actual green a little wet, but it's still wet up in here. So I'm just gonna tap and make little fuzzy trees back here. If you wanna get really technical, I would use a smaller brush, like the number 8 long round. I'm gonna get a little more blue in here, a little more brown. It's a little darker. So I'm gonna zoom in so I can show you this like line down again and this little V's. See, now it's a little bit darker. I'm going to go back on this guy. Also, besides the paint that I have, you should have some white gouache handy, because I have a couple of tricks I use with this. Now I'm getting this a little wet. Adding a thicker, darker paint now. Getting more layers. You can do some little V's off the trees like this, little V's like this. This area is pretty wet. I made mine a little bit smaller. I'm going to try and make it a little bit bigger. You get the premise of what I'm doing here. See, and you can add these little taps in the background, a little line if you want to make a bigger tree back here. It's up to you. We do have trees in the background. We can make this one even bigger. You see how this is working? Simple, simple. Just keep doing this for a little bit. And want to make sure it's still kind of wet too. So we're going to play around with splattering some gouache. So keep that handy. Now we still have our colors mixed up in the sky, and we're going to be using those in a second. So I'm just doing these little V's. They'll start to splatter in a bit. I might grab a little bit of water and kind of mush the paint here. All right. With my number 12, I'm going to go back in with my bluish gray tones. I'm going to clean up my brush here. Get my color. Get more blue in here. And I'm going to just do this little swipe. See? Swipe. So this is why we do it on arch paper. You get that little grit from the texture of the paper, and doing a swipe here. See how cool that looks? You can see like the mountains going back and forth. You could do a little swipe out this way, blah, blah, blah. And then we're going to get a little bit darker, so thicker paint. Ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, blue, a little more blue. I'm going to have to squeeze out some more in the tube. Have them close by. Whoop. Okay, thicker, thicker, darker. And the burnt sienna. So now it's like nice and thick, almost like butter. And we get a little bit darker still. See? This goes pretty fast, by the way. Look at that. It's already looking great. I'm going to go back with my tree color here. I'm going to get that Prussian blue, yellow, burnt sienna, or burnt umber. It's still kind of damp here. We still want to go back in here. I think it's getting too like lined, you know, very skinny line. So I'm taking my number 12, so it gets a little looser. See that? Just kind of move it like that. I don't want it so lined looking. And it's got a little bit dried than I'd wanted, but that's okay. So at this stage, if it's still damp, hopefully we can get, trying to do everything, duplicate that I did with a big one. Take the big brush, loosen up some white gouache. I'm going to do a little splatter. Now, because it's really loose, it's going to do this dissipation thing, and it's going to make it feel like more atmospheric on the areas that are wet. That's the goal. Bum 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 bum. Doo-da. Pretty cool already, right? Simple. That could be the greatest card right there. You don't have to go any further. As it's kind of like dissipating, I was going back in with I'm adding more brown in my green here. Thicker paint of the lovely little tree here. As you can see, it's kind of going whoosh, washing. And I'm just going in and adding in some color. But it's up to you. You might just be happy with the way it looks right there. You might get a little tighter up top like I'm doing here. Just adding in some more depth, but thicker paint, like butter almost like right out of the tube. And getting those little evergreen tree kind of splotches there. I'm going back in this tree and getting a little bit darker on this left side. It's not moving the paint, so I'm actually I had more water. I really like the way it looks right now. A little more blue. I do want it darker on this like left side. on this one, a little darker here on the bottom. So that gouache is kind of just moving around like it's playing with your paint, which is kind of fun, right? And that's that. So we can add a few more little doodads, but for the little guys, you just kind of make a little, what's the word? Almost like a rectangle, a little dot in the head, and little stick legs. So I chose to do little kids, right? I just grabbed right out of the tube my cadmium red light, right? So I'm going to zoom in again, right out of the tube on my brush. Just going to do a little, like, see, holding it like a little C. It's like a square or rectangle. And you can put little arms kind of coming down its body, right? And of course we had a little yellow jacket. I'm going to ruin my yellow paint here. Same thing, grab it right out of the tube. Basically, just put it little shorter down here. You have to move the paint, so I got to add a little water to it. And again, same thing with the arms. Boop, kind of on the side. If it's like, see how messy mine is? Doesn't matter. Like, they're far away. And then you can add like little legs. I'm using Payne's gray or a little blue. And just, here we go. Shorter legs. You wouldn't do long ones because they're kids. 1, 2. See? 1. Shorter little legs. Because they're children. That's it. And then I use the Payne's gray bluish kind of combo. Do a little round circle for their head. Seems like it doesn't want to work for me right now. That's okay. Round, round. And here, I put a little line, boop, see, swoop out for like a sled. Here's a little sled and leg part. And I just grabbed that same red. You can mix it to a different color if you want. Different red. I have red with pyro red. And just do like 1, 2, 3 lines, like a little sled. You can kind of mix them together. That's it, right? And then for their hat, even though they're little black heads, you could put a little dot for on top of that black area when it's dry for hats. So it looks a little more like they're kids. Colorful. Kids would have colorful clothing and mittens and stuff like that. And that's it. 2 little guys. At this point, you just add a few little shadows kind of near them, taking the same blues that we used, maybe a little bit lighter, and I just kind of go like this. Take my brush. This is the 8 long round. First, have the little shadows of their bodies coming this way, a little bit darker. See? And then have some shadows kind of near them. Yep, it's a little wet. Messed up that red part. I'll just clean that up. So like I said, you grab a little bit of that darker gray, kind of go down, shadows, and then do a little blue kind of coming out this way. And you can make it a little bit darker up in here. Play around with that. Look how cute they look. Just walking up the hill. Like I said, you don't have to take much time to it. And actually, if you want to have some shadows to their actual bodies too, you can grab some Payne's gray. And I just kind of stick it on like one to the left side a little bit of each person. So you can still kind of see the yellow kind of color and the red. I'm adding a little burnt sienna too because this is coming out green instead of like gray, but you get what I'm saying? Because they'll be in the shadow, but you want their little jackets to be highlighted. So I'm just painting on top of that reddish color so you can see in the yellow. And then you can still see the color on their jacket. But you see how it's highlighted? Does that make sense? Like the shadow. And the sled, you can have a little shadow from the sled. Right there. Now at this point, you can add a few more darker colors of the tree. etc. And then add a little more snow with your lovely gouache. I might loosen it up, use a smaller brush. Smaller brush equals smaller splatters. And just go like this on top of the whole thing. And you have this really cute little card that took 0 time. I'm telling you, this is pretty easy. And what a great effect, right? Now, if you have a bunch of kids, you could do more kids, but that's it. Really, in a nutshell, that was it. This didn't take much time at all, really, to draw the little guys, the trees, and all that. And you peel it off, and you have a wonderful card. La la la. This is my favorite part, by the way. Now, like I said, if you're a Patreon member, you get a additional little extra extended version. And if you want to join Patreon, just click the link in the description box and you'll get to join Patreon and have the extra. So thank you guys so much for stopping by my channel. I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to please subscribe, hit the like button to know my tutorial is up, and have a fantastic time creating some fun new Christmas cards.